Welcome to Aurora Institute's webinar, Amplifying Authentic Whole School Student-Led Learning, Lessons from an Australian School. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lori Gagno, the Competency Works Program Director at the Aurora Institute, and I'll be moderating the webinar. So as you are probably familiar with webinar protocol, we invite you to use the chat box to introduce yourself now and throughout to ask questions, to comment, and to share your reflections and insights from your own experiences throughout our time together. We also welcome you to use the reactions buttons. And beyond our webinar space, we invite you to share what you're learning on Twitter or other social media by tagging us at Aurora_Inst. And then we will be sharing the learning beyond this session with our networks and peers and learning communities. Today's session will be recorded and we'll archive it on the Aurora Institute website, and we'll send a follow-up email with the slides and the recording. So now to the most exciting part, introductions. We're grateful to have a terrific group of speakers here with us today. We have Nick Johns and Erin Corbyn, who are the Associate Directors for Education at The Connection, which is part of Social Ventures Australia. We have Marg Clark, who's the principal of Prospect North Primary School in South Australia. And we hear Australian Principal of the Year. So I'm pretty excited about that. And we have three students who are also from Prospect North, Edie, Alisha, and Nina, and they're all in year 6 and also all part of the student parliament. And without further ado, Nick, I'll turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Laurie. And we are really excited to have you joining us today as we discuss amplifying authentic whole school student-led learning, lessons from an Australian school. Brilliant to see that we've got people joining us from all over the world, from Montreal, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Michigan, Kentucky, New York, Colorado, Boston, Utah, and here in Australia, Melbourne, where I am joining from, and also Adelaide, where our school is joining us from Prospect North today. And as mentioned, it's myself and Erin working with Social Ventures Australia with an initiative called The Connection, who will be speaking to how we amplify that great work right across Australia today. And Marg Clark, the principal of Prospect North Primary School, along with the students, Edie, Alisha, and Nina, joining us today. So we today would like to, as we always do here in Australia, start by acknowledging the country upon which we join you from today. We would like to begin by acknowledging and paying our respects to the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we are gathered right across Australia. We would like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people or First Nations people that might be joining us here today. Here in Australia, we accept the invitation in the Uluru Statement from the Heart to walk together with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in a movement of the Australian people for a better future. And we would like to invite you, wherever you are today, in the chat box to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where you are located and joining us from. Today, we are really fortunate to be able to hear directly from school students and from Prospect North School. Prospect North Primary School is a brilliant school that I love to visit every time I get across to Adelaide. And as was mentioned before, there is actually an award-winning, Australian-wide award-winning principal leading up the helm there, Marg Clark, who will be speaking, but it's great that we get to hear directly from students today. So I am going to hand over to Marg and the team at Prospect North to take us through a whole range of pieces about student agency and learning about how they amplify student voice at Prospect North Primary School. Over to you, Marg and team.
Hi, we are just going to share our screen. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a rundown before I hand over to the kids. We are a school that's just outside of the city of Adelaide. Most of our students come from disadvantaged areas in South Australia. We have a lot of housing that is emergency housing, and a lot of transient population, but an absolutely beautiful, vibrant, multicultural community that we are part of. And almost 6.5 years ago, we looked at really trying to change the way students were engaging with their school and families were engaging with the school. It was not a school of choice, so everyone bypassed Prospect North to go to other schools. And we really wanted to change that, to try and build a community that was proud of their school and could get a really great education. So we shared for the first 6 months, went through a really big process of asking the community what they wanted from their school. And the image you can see on the screen now is an agreement we came to around how our school would work and what we wanted for our students. And the column on the end is around student agency. And we really wanted our kids to build the community for us. And so we leapt into a process of involving the community and the kids in building a new school that would service them. So I'm actually not going to tell my leadership story, which is something that I usually do. I'm going to hand over to the kids so that they can tell a story of what it was like for the children, and what things we put in place and co-designed to help the community grow. And these kids are the first group of children when I got here were in their first year of school. So these are the first children who I've seen come all the way through and graduate. So I'm going to hand over to them and let them share some of the work we've done.
Hi, I'm Alisha. This is Edie and Nina. We're here today to show how we have agency in our learning and at our school, give you ideas to implement at yours. At PNPS, we believe that students should be connected to the real world, near and far, actively problem find and problem solve, play and investigate, understand and be articulate about how and why they learn, set their own goals and reflectively assess their progress to inform new learning, have the time to explore the curriculum deeply, find and follow their passions. At PNPS, we see all students as capable learners, and we give everyone an opportunity to demonstrate their learning in many different ways. We considered on real-world problems and solutions, student agency and metacognition, well-being for learning and learning for well-being, immersive environments, critical and creative thinking, personal and social capability.
STEM has been a vehicle of change at our school. When we first started changing the way we learn, we used STEM and design thinking to engage students in their learning and find hands-on experiences to make our community better. STEM practices at our school ensure ideas, values, and methods form an important framework within all thinking and learning in the school. Great STEM learning enhances our school values, compassion, curiosity, creativity, and resilience. In our learning, we often include real-life problems that are relevant to not just our work, but on a global scale, looking at how we can leave a positive impact. This is where STEM fits in our school. Personal investigations, buddy classes, STEM design thinking together, project-based learning, real-world issues, extension opportunities to introduce high-level programming and STEM-based problem-solving competitions, e.g. Lego League and PNTV.
Across our school, we participate in deep learning by doing longer projects with more time to develop our understanding. This helps us connect ideas to our topics or topic. As students, we need more time to be able to dig deeply into a topic and keep coming back to it with new ideas generated by feedback and feed forward. In our school, we have changed the way we learn dramatically. For example, our subjects used to be taught separate and in a more traditional manner, whereas now our learning is more integrated and we have more control over how we learn. Design thinking gives us a framework to dig deeply into problems and to come up with solutions that are co-created. We have structures in place which allow students of all capabilities to pursue an independent inquiry of interest to them. Here are some examples of students initiating their learning. For example, in the yard, you will see many play spaces where we use the design and thinking process to co-design and then build our play spaces. Every child at PNPS undertakes a personal investigation. These are age appropriate and become more sophisticated as the child moves through their learning journey. These are an opportunity for students to self-manage and use the secret powers to be successful. This has a sophisticated framework to allow students to follow their passions, but ensure that we are tracking and monitoring their curriculum. Curriculum coverage as they go. It gives real-world reasons to publish via writing, video, and other technologies. We have many students investigating above year level concepts as we bring in experience as local high school faculties to help them with their research.
In our school, we value feedback, student voice feedback, and feed forward. We reflect often about what is working and what we can improve on. We have many feedback and critique structures built into our everyday learning opportunities. Students and staff learn together at Prospect North as we feel this is important because everyone can always learn something new from someone else. Gone are the days where teachers are the experts. STEM thinking is about everyone learning together collaboratively. By using different processes at the planning stage of our units of work, we are able to have students co-design the learning with staff and adapt as they go. By embedding student agency in the learning process, we co-construct learning so students can age appropriately, self-manage their goals, assessments, and improvement strategies. Our class is the Senior Studio. It's a place where students can design and create their learning space. It's a great space because you can pick where you want to sit for each lesson. The furniture is comfortable, so students have options of sitting. The learning equipment is always available for students, so we can grab what we need for the lesson. Each student has designed their own timetable so they can work at their own pace. The teachers guide us along the way to make sure everyone is up to date. Guide us along the way, but still make sure we are responsible for our own work and run workshops to make sure everyone is up to date. In the classroom, every student has a role to play so the studio is clean and tidy. We have animals to keep the studio so the studio is calm. We do many group and partner work like ancient history, reading groups, filmmaking, math investigations, and many others. We also keep homework diaries to keep our homework organized.
Secret powers are one of the main structures we have in place to support agency. We have taken the general capabilities continuums and Dan Buckley's work on secret skills and melded them to become our secret powers learning framework. The secret powers enable us to understand what it takes to be a successful learner. This framework helps everyone learn the skills they need to successfully manage their own learning and be part of the team at school. It helps us to set goals to improve our learning capabilities. The secret powers stand for S, self-manager, E, engaged citizen, C, creative and critical thinker, R, reflective learner, E, explorer, and T, team player. Here's a short video to explain what they are.
Hi, I'm Harleen.
And I'm Alisha. Today we'll be talking about all the secret powers. The secret powers were created to help students focus in their learning and to teach them valuable skills to help prepare them for high school and onwards in life. Self-manager is a power that helps us with being organised, teaching us the strategy of go for it, finish it, and to manage your risks and emotions. Engaged citizen is the power that helps us find solutions, persuading others, and to help us get involved in class and group conversations. The power creative and critical thinker helps us imagine possibilities and to help us think outside the box. It also teaches us to make links, create questions, and to take creative risks. The reflective learner helps us to plan and review, invite feedback, set yourself achievable goals and challenges to share our learning. The explorer power helps us to explore questions and to get a deeper understanding of the topic. It also helps us evaluate evidence, stay objective, and to reach conclusions. And last of all, we have team player. The team player power helps us to take responsibility, build team strength, and to manage and evaluate the team. Thank you.
Another way we build agency is through student parliament. In our school, we have 5 different ministries. In the teaching and learning ministry, we investigate different ways to help students learn, including students with learning difficulties. In this ministry, we also try to find a lot of new methods to learn in a deeper way for students. We have helped redesign assessments and reporting in our school. The STEM ministry develops programs to improve leadership in an agency. Digital Leaders, PNTV, Kids Teach STEM, and Lego Week, which will build robots to solve real-life problems, and buddies, where you engage in cross-age projects. In the Indigenous Voice Ministry, all the Indigenous students in the school have a say. In this ministry, Indigenous students promote and make decisions relevant to Aboriginal perspectives across the school. The Wellbeing Ministry makes decisions for the whole school's well-being. They also promote circle time, which is a time where kids can talk and share about pretty much everything. They look at patterns in well-being data sets and help kids in their learning along the way. And they also help design sensory and calming corners in every room so kids can have a break when they need to regulate their emotions. Building school communities work with our governing council to make sure our community is welcome and develop a sense of belonging. They always come up with ideas to make our school a better place and fun to be in.
We have many leadership programs at our school, one of which is Digital Leader. Digital leaders are volunteers from year 2 to 6, aimed at kids who enjoy technology and working how new things work, combines digital prowess and interest with leadership opportunities, uses a badge-based system to recognize and acknowledge skills and leadership, builds student capacity and takes pressure off teachers when using new technology, great advocates for STEM and the school's learning program.
Kids Teach STEM is a series of conferences designed and delivered by Student Parliament and workshops where we share our learnings with other schools. The conferences have given us some amazing opportunities to develop our skills as public speakers and to co-design learning improvement with other schools in our area. This is a video of a recent conference.
So, Jessie, what school are you from? I am from Stradbroke Primary School.
What's your favourite part about the school?
My favourite part would probably how you include everyone and respect the Aboriginal country.
So Nathan, what school are you from?
Hamster Primary School.
What's your favourite part about the Kids Teach STEM conference?
How they give us a tour about Prospect North and their places.
Hi, I'm Harleen and today I'm here with
Karen.
from Prospect Primary School. So, Karen, how have you liked Prospect North so far?
I think that Prospect North are an amazing, innovative school. I've particularly loved seeing the evidence of the secret skills that you call your secret powers around in each classroom and how they identify those and how they use them embedded in all of their learning. So that's been really exciting to see that.
Hi, I'm Alisha and today I'm here with Anna. How's your day been going, Anna?
Pretty good, yeah. So we've just had tours and all of that, and it's been really good.
What are some differences from Prospect North to Prospect Primary?
Well, one of the definite differences are that you have a lot more like student-based learning, as in Prospect Primary we do have like a lot more of the teachers like guiding our tasks, and you do have a lot more animals in your classrooms, which I find really cool.
So Jennifer, how has your day been here at Prospect North?
Well, I've actually really enjoyed the Kids Teach STEM conference. I missed out on doing this task when we did it at our school, and it's actually been really fun. I've got to have a look at some different views of different things that people do in different schools that I would like to incorporate into our school. I've seen some things in classrooms that I absolutely love and I think would be an awesome thing in our school. I love student voice and I've been in student voice for a few years now, and yeah, I think you guys have given us and me some different views on how we can take things into our school.
So Maddie, what have you enjoyed most about the STEM conference?
I've really enjoyed learning more about how everything works and how different schools do different things to help their students learn.
I'm Ethan and I'm here with Knox. How are you enjoying this Kids Teach STEM conference?
Well, I'm currently doing the team manager and team player.
So Tate, why do you think student agencies are important?
So the kids can show initiative and work independently.
Hi, I'm Nina and I'm here with Rommel. So Rommel, why do you think student agencies are important?
Well, I think it's important so you have a say in your own learning and you get to express yourself and how you want to learn and get a say in decisions and stuff like that.
So Michelle, how have you been enjoying the day so far?
I've absolutely loved the day so far. It's so wonderful to see students like yourself presenting to us all, the way you're engaging, you're very articulate in the way you're speaking, going for a tour and being very knowledgeable about your site, and we've got so many great ideas that we can take back to school, so loving the day.
Like digital leaders, we have students who are in the PNTV crew. These students learn all about creating great digital content and deliver an episode of PNTV each week to the community. PNTV helps us celebrate our learning, our cultural diversity, and keeps our community connected. Our studio is also set up for podcasting. We've had lots of great community leaders and mentors come talk to us about how they became successful. PNTV has been an amazing opportunity for us to build confidence in public speaking and to learn skills for the future. Our overall message to you is that all children are capable of achieving extraordinary outcomes in their learning. Sometimes it just takes a step to present learning differently. Your job as teachers should not be to always lead your students, but to instead walk side by side in their learning journeys. Thank you for letting us speak to you today. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was absolutely brilliant, girls. Thank you, Edie. Thank you, Alisha. Thank you, Nina. Can we give them a big clap in the way that you can with your reactions and so forth? And we'd love to see comments dropped into the chat as well. That was absolutely brilliant. So as you might have noticed as well, if you want to watch more videos, because I did see someone commenting on how great it was to see those videos, the Prospect North TV YouTube link has been dropped into the chat. and there are some really amazing videos in there. And that's one of the great outputs that comes from Prospect North. So as I just share the slides again and get that into presentation mode, we're really excited now to talk to you a little bit about how we amplify great practice, like what you've just seen from Prospect North Primary School, right across Australia, and indeed across the world. It's great to see that we have people from Bangladesh and Hawaii joining us. Martin Westwell, thank you for joining us from the South Australian Department. We have department people from Washington, and we have people from Ohio and Philadelphia. So the eternal question is, well, how do we amplify great practice? How do we make sure that it's not just siloed in one school? We know lots of schools, don't we? We all do, where there's amazing practice, but how do we spread that further? Well, our solution, if you will, here in Australia is the initiative called The Connection. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn, where we often share the stories and the hashtag good work of the schools that we work with. So as a bit of background, did you know that there are around about 9,600 schools in Australia with approximately 4 million students? Now, approximately 4,500 schools are in communities experiencing disadvantage, which means that there are around about 2 million students that are in disadvantaged communities. And in fact, the OECD trend data shows that the bottom 20% demographic of those students is at risk of being up to 2 years plus behind the top 20% demographic cohort in the fields of literacy and numeracy, which suggests that up to 800,000 young people in Australian classrooms today are impacted. So how do we tackle the wicked issues that are a challenge to overcoming inequity in education? In addition, in Australia, right now, we are facing critical staffing challenges in schools right across Australia. Just having warm and vertical teachers in classrooms is a critical issue in every single state of Australia. We're finding, as perhaps you might be in America and right across the world, a post-COVID tale in terms of staff well-being and how teachers are showing up in terms of their energy levels. And I have heard many a principal say to me that this past year was actually even more challenging than the 2 years prior, when we had quite hard lockdowns, certainly in the state of Victoria that I am in response to COVID. All of the things that have happened this year have been very, very challenging once students and teachers have been back. So how can we support educators to flourish? We are going to be mentioning a little later Dr. Alan Daly from the University of California and his social network theory, which talks about the ways that educators can flourish by networking and by connecting and by sharing the burden, I suppose, which is exactly what The Connection is about. It's a systems impact initiative of Social Ventures Australia, which is a not-for-profit organisation, quite similar to the Aurora Institute, as I have found out in discussions, in terms of our goals of overcoming education inequity. Social Ventures Australia has an overall overcoming inequity goal so that all Australians thrive. And we work within the Collaborative Leadership Development Network education part of that. We aim to build the capacity of high-performing and emerging leaders, and we work together to amplify the best practice. We connect with education and sharing evidence from right across the world with that real evidence-informed research approach. And we connect with innovative pedagogical thinking from all over Australia and from all over the world. So over the the last almost 9 years now since we started in 2014. Up until 2020, we had engaged with 50 schools, 2,900 educators and about 50,000 students. And as you can see from the map there, primarily across the 3 states in the, I'm going to think of the geography here, the southeast of Australia. So that's South Australia, where Prospect North is, Victoria down the bottom where I'm based, the dark green, and New South Wales, the medium green on the side there, which for those of you who might only know Sydney and the Sydney Harbour Bridge, that's where that is. Now, from then until now, we began in 2014 with 8 schools in 2 states of Australia. And those schools were called our powerhouse schools. Now, again, the concept was to try to amplify the best practice that we saw in low SES schools and to find ways to amplify that across the system. So those powerhouse schools very much were in a place where they were able to connect with each other and then spread that practice, both in terms of across state boundaries, which is one of the things we hear often. That's one of the big differences of the connection. You might get the opportunity within your local networks as a school to talk to those schools around you and find out how they're solving for common challenges. But you might find, in fact, that you have more in common with a school in another state that has very similar demographic to you. And in addition, when you're sharing across state boundaries, you might find that you are able to have conversations that are outside of the way that things are regulated and the typical, if you will, systems that are in place within your state. And it might spark ideas that are fresh and new to you. A brilliant example of that is the student agency work that Prospect North has been demonstrating so ably here. About 4 or 5 years ago, we had a range of schools from New South Wales visit South Australia, become very inspired by the student agency practice they saw and take that back and then contextualize that to their schools in their states. So now in 2022, the connection has expanded to reach 72 schools, serving over 50,000 students, and it's growing now across multiple states. We work across primary and secondary, and we link with a number of brokers and industry partners and business partners who can support those schools as well. So in relation to our values, they are as follows. So as you can see there, collaboration, connection, trust, equity, inspiration, and agility. So what do those actually mean? Well, essentially, in terms of collaboration, we convene education leaders to take shared responsibility to improve education for all students. There's a real emphasis on thinking about the students that are within your school, but further than your school, within your state and right across Australia. And indeed, we would hope across the world. Connection. We cultivate new connections and convene opportunities for schools to achieve their goals and grow impact for learning through action together. Trust. Now, this is critical. We build an environment where leaders feel safe and share expertise. Unless there's trust between leaders, we know that they won't be inclined to share, and where we can break down the mistrust or the sense of competition between schools, particularly if those schools are in a similar area, then that will enable the sharing of ideas. Equity. We increase equitable access to resources and practices and opportunities. And we are about equity for students, overcoming inequity. Inspiration. So we leverage off the shared exchange of knowledge to create opportunities to grow effective practice. And finally, agility. Well, we've all had to show a lot of that over the last 3 years with COVID, haven't we? We support responsive adaptation to changing circumstances, whether that be a global pandemic, whether that be a staffing shortage, crisis potentially within schools, or whether that be a change of leadership or whatever it is that's local and contextual to that school. So now that I've taken you through those values, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Erin, who is going to talk us through some of the preconditions for collaboration. Erin, over to you. Erin, I think you're still on mute, sorry. And once you find that button, over to you.
There we go. So I'm going to talk to when I find my right screen, there we go. As Nick said, the connection began in 2014 with a small pilot of schools. And by 2019, the connection had reached around 50 schools across those 3 states. And we contracted RMIT University in Melbourne to conduct an evaluation of this pilot phase of the programme. So I'd like to talk you through some of the key findings of that evaluation, because we are in this quite innovative, or we like to think we're in this quite innovative and new space around collaboration. And they identified through this evaluation that although these words collaboration, networking, working in hubs are being heard a lot, and not just in the education sector. I was at a funders meeting the other week with somebody from the health sector talking about their hubs and their working together, that there is a real science behind it, and that in order to be effective and drive towards impact, networks or communities of practice, or whatever you choose to call them, need to be really carefully and intentionally designed and build on these key enabling conditions that you see on the slides there. And that means that the selection of schools into the connection network is very deliberate. That schools need to be really clear on their own whole school improvement agenda, aligned to their own state government priorities in order to join. And they need to already have the resourcing ability to be able to contribute to networking events. Now, in some of our very small schools over in South Australia, where they might only have 15 to 20 students, that might involve working together in a small cluster and joining the connection as a cluster of schools as opposed to one individual school. Next slide, please. Nick. There we go. Thank you. Because without that sort of strategic alignment that I talked about with their own state government priorities, the network's at risk of becoming an additional project or a short-term piece of work that stretches schools. You'd all be really familiar with this kind of add-on. And the last thing we want to do is to be an add-on and pull schools away from the state priorities or conflict with what they're already doing in their strategic planning. So the capacity building intent of the SVA and the connection work is to add that leadership capacity to the work that's already occurring. Next slide, please, Nick. The evaluation suggested that the combination of both those preconditions or the enabling conditions in school, and then certain characteristics of the network itself, the setup from the connection, is really important to achieve a long-lasting impact on students, educators, schools, and their whole community. And we hope in time in the wider education system, both in Australia and globally. Schools selected not only have the previous conditions that I outlined in place, but the leadership teams themselves are carefully selected by undergoing a sort of quite rigorous due diligence to make sure that they have these characteristics of openness and vulnerability that are necessary to learn together and build capacity together. And then our networking events are really carefully designed to continue to foster these characteristics, because until there's that sort of open and vulnerable space, the learning and the sharing can't occur. Next slide, please, Nick. And Nick mentioned that the majority, or actually all of our schools are what we would describe as low socioeconomic schools. So we have an ICSEA rating in Australia. So they all have a shared ICSEA below 1,000. And that's where we find this shared moral purpose, because all the schools, whether it's a primary setting, a secondary setting, or an alternative setting, have this commonality. They're brought together by facing similar wicked issues. And often our schools are quite quite surprised by that. We sort of hear initially like, but I'm secondary and they're primary and I'm not sure what we could learn from them. But you find that when we've got this shared moral purpose, schools actually find that they've got a lot more in common and a lot more to talk about than they realised. So what exactly do we do? Next slide, please, Nick. There's 3 levels of engagement between schools and the connection. The first being at a one-to-one level between the school and what we refer to as a relationship manager. So Nick and I have the privilege of being relationship managers for many of these schools, including Prospect North. That one-to-one time between ourselves and the school is that time to explore the school's strengths and challenges and develop a sort of theory of change or an action plan that sits, I suppose one of my schools always talks about the plan. It is the plan beneath the plan when they have their own school strategic documents that are from their individual state departments. And then we go a little bit deeper and look at those measures and impact and go into a finer detail around one aspect of their strategic planning. As a relationship manager, I think we pride ourselves a lot on being the school's sort of biggest fan, biggest supporter, and hopefully that comes across from our work with Prospect North. Our role is really as a convener, not as an expert or as being the font of all knowledge. The knowledge definitely sits within the network and within the schools. We like to think of ourselves as more of a critical friend, offering feedback, asking questions, and by understanding the needs of the school, both their strengths and their weaknesses, that allows us to make really targeted introductions to schools with similar issues, whether that's another school who's facing something similar, or it might be an industry partner or a university. I often like to think of us as the school version, the education version of online dating or Tinder. We like to match them up together, schools that can benefit from each other. We then have a next level of engagement, which are referred to as our hub days. These are located within a school, so schools visit each other and learn from being within their context. It's a smaller group of schools that have that are grouped either by location or by their strategic focus. So at the moment, we have a group of regional schools, or we also have, a group of schools looking specifically around agency. We've had groups of schools looking at specific things around STEM or transitions to work. So these schools really get into the nitty-gritty around their project or their theory of change and get to test and generate ideas with like-minded leaders from other schools. And we always involve up to 3 members of the school team, noting that we don't want that capacity to just sit within one member of the team. So there's a bit of risk mitigation by involving a larger leadership team, but also that opportunity for a principal to distribute some of the work and the thinking. The final level of engagement is the thought leadership gathering. These happen 3 times a year and is where all the fun happens, all the networking happens. They are about expanding and stretching our leaders. We don't have keynote speakers, we have provocateurs. And our provocateurs, including quite recently the Brookings Institute, which is of course a US-based institute that I'm sure you'd be really aware of. Rebecca Winthrop loved the idea of being a provocateur. It means you can say things that are really out there. But it's about getting our leaders to think outside the box and test those ideas with each other. And that brings together all the schools from all the states that are involved in the connection. And that's where we sort of think about a bespoke agenda that helps these schools that are doing really great things become real influencers within the system and within the global network, which is of course what Prospect North are coming and doing today. So if you'd just like to move on, Nick, there we all are at a thought leadership gathering. And as I said, there is the collective expertise. I don't know if Nick and I are in that photo, but we're not the collective expertise. That definitely sits within our leaders. Next slide, please. If you would like to find out a bit more about the connection, Nick and I will certainly share our information and are very happy and keen to talk to you about the work. but we have just been featured as a case study in a recent paper by Wise, which we're really pleased about, and you can use the QR code there to visit that. And also, as Nick mentioned before, we work quite a lot with Dr. Jeffrey Brooks, who is now over at Curtin University, I believe. He's just moved from Melbourne, over in Western Australia, and Dr. Alan Daly, who's from the University of California, have done some writing there about this idea of intentional social networks and how the real science and evidence behind a network beyond what we sometimes think, which is just a gathering of people. You can find us ourselves online on the next slide. Thanks, Nick. And visit our website with plenty of case studies to explore there. And as I said before, finally, if you would like to reach out to us directly, we are always more than happy to talk. I believe our details are on the next slide. So Nick and myself are the associate directors within the team, and Sue Cridge, who you may have come across before, she's done a lot of work in the US, is our director. She sends her apologies that she can't be with us today, but would be very happy always to have a follow-up conversation. So that leaves us hopefully about 15 minutes for some Q&A, and I saw that there was already a couple of questions in the chat box. We've just finished there with our thank you. We like to share this. This is this piece of art was made specifically for the connection by a 15-year-old Aboriginal artist from New South Wales, Billy Reynolds. Billy has gone on to design for jerseys in the Australian Football League Indigenous round, and is selling his art. But we asked him to create something, and he created this beautiful piece which represents, you can see sort of the communities coming together, and then as one in the middle for learning and sharing their expertise. So we like to share that at the end of our presentations. But yeah, I can see we've got a few questions in the Q&A to start with. Marg, I think most of them are probably for you and your team at Prospect North, but I'll just roll into some Q&A, and I know some of the, I think Laurie's going to help me out with this as well. But I might start, Marg. There's just one here asking about the teacher to student ratio. I think everything that we'd seen, you'd almost believe that you had more teachers than the rest of us to achieve all that you've achieved there at Prospect North. But the question is, what is the teacher to student ratio, or how do you reorganize your staff in order to the individuals and teams of students?
So the ratios in South Australia are for junior primary classes, a class of 26 children, and for upper primary classes up to 30. We get a little bit more funding for the low socioeconomic, and so we can reduce our class sizes maybe by 2 kids. But what we've done is we've paired all of our teachers up so that they team teach together, which makes it a far more flexible kind of learning space so that they can teach in small groups. If you've got 2 teachers in the classroom and a group of kids needs help, then one teacher can be teaching the big group and one teacher can be teaching the small group. So we've really made it work by teaming everybody up and making sure that everyone's in a shared space.
Thank you, and I'm going to stick with you. And keep with one around staffing, because the question is, what's been your main strategy for the critical teacher shortage? And I don't know if you want to speak particularly about your context, Marg, and then Nick, maybe you and I can fill in about what we've heard about other areas of Australia.
Yeah, I think this year for us has been the hardest. South Australia was not really hit hard by COVID until this year, because we had a lockout policy in Australia, we were kind of going about our business for the last few years. And then this year, COVID really hit hard. And so staff shortages, we have just had to make do. It's probably been the messiest year that I've ever spent as a principal. We've had to have everyone on board in classrooms trying to cover classes. We haven't always got enough relief staff, but we make do with the staff we've got on the day to make it happen. We've just had to do that. And recruiting wise, we recruit a lot of young straight out of university teachers, which is great. We can train them up the way Prospect North does things. So we actually love new energetic teachers coming in, and we'll pair them up with one of our more established teachers in their team, so we can really train them up pretty fast to work the way we want them to work. Yeah.
Did you want to add to that, Nick, from sort of what we're hearing from around other schools in Australia?
Any way they can would be the answer. So robbing Peter to pay Paul, recruiting fourth year students, finding that when they go to recruit fourth year students, they've already been recruited, paying fourth year students to complete their pracs because they've got prac period 1, 2, and then periods 3, 4, 5, 6, they've got them on relief. You know, trying to get relief teachers on the books so that they're employed permanently. It sounds like there's been just incredible challenges, and everyone I speak to, either, you know, friends of mine who are in schools as teachers or leaders within this particular initiative, just say this has been by far the hardest year ever to staff schools, and that has presented enormous challenges.
And as I mentioned, you know, we group schools into hubs that have got similar wicked issues. And at the moment, I'm leading a hub of schools that are all in either rural or actually some quite remote schools in South Australia as well. I mentioned, you know, some of them with as few as 15 children. And as I'm sure is the case in the US, that critical teacher shortage is exacerbated in those regions. And the networking and the sharing and the collaboration, I'm thinking of one particular small cluster of schools that I've worked with, that ability, that connection that they've generated, and then their ability to sort of share and work together has somewhat helped ease that some of that pain of the teacher shortages as well.
Maybe we can do one about advice for helping schools to make a big change in giving students more autonomy in their learning. And maybe we can start with the students if any of you want to give some advice to other schools, and then we can let other people jump in as well.
Alisha, you want to say something?
The question is, what advice would you give to other schools wanting to make a big change in giving their students more agency?
I would say to support your students in their journey, and not to essentially to take over their learning and not to give them a say, but to go against them and to guide them so that they're also challenging themselves and learning new things along their journey.
Maybe talk about the secret powers even.
Yeah, and also the secret powers, like if there's anything like similar that you could add that to the school, and to like just like introduce new ways of like learning, and just trying, like, because everybody learns in a different way. So if like seeing like what kids prefer, like a way that they like to learn more, maybe that could help a lot.
Presenting through getting content in. Presenting through TV, getting content out digitally.
Getting like content and like information out to like your community so that like all the parents and like even like students from other classes are like updated with the school's decisions.
Does anyone have any questions?
Does anyone else have any questions for us?
That was
Can't
wonderful. Oh, Nick, I
No,
see you.
you go.
Does anyone have any questions for us?
We have a question that you could maybe answer around how your parents or your families get involved in school, and someone mentions that they have had some experience working in schools in Italy using the Reggio Emilio style, if you're familiar with that, Marg, but maybe you could tell us what it's like when your parents, how your parents and family are involved in all of this.
So we have like a governing council where they meet like I think Monday nights, and there's quite a few parents that are involved to help make decisions for the school that they can help with, so that the principal and like people in the staff have like more opinions to go off on.
We have like lots of celebrations and opportunities as well, so that we can get the community, families and parents like involved within the school and with the kids, like many times on Harmony Day or the book week day and stuff like that. We have many parents come in the school so that they can see what we're doing, how we do things, and on sports day, a lot of things like that.
And PNT,
yeah, and PNTV as well.
And Marg, 30-second answer. How do you communicate learning? Is there a learner record or a personalised learning plan?
So we, as the kids get older, so we do a lot of goal setting because we have a very large continuum of children coming and going from our school, all at different learning levels, quite a complex community. We work on learning progressions and goal setting. So the students will immerse in a topic and then set their own goals about what the next learning needs are within that topic, and the teachers will guide them to achieve their goals, and the goals will then get moved. So if they've achieved a goal, they'll do another goal setting with the teacher and they'll try and achieve the next goal. So those goals are not only the learning curriculum goals, they're also the secret power continuum as well. So the secret power are our learning powers, really. They're how to be a good learner, how to manage yourself, how to interact with others. So kids will set goals against both of those continuums. So curriculum goals and secret power goals.
Brilliant. Now we have a couple of minutes left, and so I'm going to share the link now to the presentation, once I can get that working, so that you can please do a 1-minute survey to close this out. And if you can jump onto that link, I think it might get dropped into the chat if someone's that clever. Well done, Aurora Institute, already done. We are really pleased that everyone's been able to join us today. Thank you so much. And to close this out, I want to say a big thank you. Can we give thumbs up and applauses and whatever you can manage to Edie, Alisha and Nina at Prospect North.
Lots of love hearts going up there.
To Marg for hosting us, and to Sam, who's running your tech. What a superstar. Thank you very much from us for the opportunity to the Aurora Institute, because this has been really brilliant. And don't forget that you can actually stay connected, and we would love you to. There was a great question from Avery about how do you make big change and how do you make system-wide or entire school change. get in touch. We'd love to have a chat about that. And this has been a great opportunity, hopefully, that I'm hoping you've taken something away from today and that you are able to take some of this back to where you are. And for anyone who's watching online, please reach out and get on touch after the webinar as well. Laurie, anything from the Aurora Institute to close us out?
Just going to echo the gratitude and thank you all for joining us, and have either a good evening or a good rest of the day, depending on where you are in the world. And lots of love to everybody. You'll get a recording and the full slides in the coming days as well. And stay tuned and stay connected.
Thank you. Bye.